Poverty is the worst form of violence. Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian political and spiritual leader, wanted to express the harsh reality that is poverty. By doing nothing to help those in poverty or even making their lives harder, the average person continues to hurt the impoverished more than war or death could. How does being raised in poverty affect one's future chances in life? The U.S. Census Bureau data reveals that 45.3 million out of 361.2 million people were poor in America in 2013. That is a little over 12.5% of the population, and it just keeps on increasing. Currently, the U.S. has a 15.05 poverty percentage. 1 in 5 of those citizens is a child who is in their years of greatest brain development and vulnerability. As well as black children saw no decease and continue to have the highest child poverty rates in the nation. In 20 states, more than 40% of black children are poor, and nearly 1 in 5 children were living in extreme poverty with an annual income of less than half of the poverty level, or $33 a day for a family of 4. After drawing on a longitudinal study of more than 2,000 children, a pair of researchers from the University of Michigan found that being raised in a neighborhood with high poverty and unemployment cuts the likelihood of high school graduation from 96% to 76% for black children, and from 95% to 85% for white children. And the longer a child lives in that kind of neighborhood, the more harmful the effect. This is caused by the fact that families can't afford proper education and resources for their children. On top of that, the government only allocates 8% of the yearly budget to education. As a result, the public schools in impoverished areas are in much worse condition than the ones in wealthy areas who can afford to improve the conditions of their school. This leads to negative effects caused by not graduating high school that have been shown by Child Fund, an organization that seeks to provide safe environments for children to grow. If they do not graduate before age 20, they will be 7 times more likely to be persistently poor between ages 25 and 30. This is caused because many higher paying jobs require a high school diploma and even college degrees. As a result, they get paid $10,000 less than high school graduates and $36,000 less than college graduates on average. This leaves them in a situation where they can't find jobs to pay for returning back to school or even living. So they run up large amount of debt and end up trapped in poverty or become homeless. According to Rebecca M. Blank, author of It Takes a Nation, A New Agenda for Fighting Poverty, rates of homicide among young black men between ages 15 and 24 have almost doubled since 1985 and are 8 times the homicide rate among young white men of the same ages. This is because, according to the statistics gathered, illegal drug use is higher among young people, men, those with less education, and those who are not working. When on drugs, the chance of violent crimes exponentially increases as they lose control of their emotions and release pent-up anger. Also, even when they're not on their drugs, their addiction may cause them to act erratically, using any means necessary to get the next high. Additionally, in urban ghetto areas, the incidence of handgun possession and use has soared, which allowed these random, on-the-spot crimes to be more easily committed. However, even if they are not perpetrators of a crime, impoverished are at a higher risk to be victims of violent crimes than are high-income people by almost 3 times. If a provider for a family is involved in one of these crimes, it puts great strains on the families as they either have to spend a large amount of money on healthcare or they lose part of their income, leading to them becoming even more impoverished. Poverty's harsh effects on health start before babies are born and pile up throughout their adult lives. With stress-filled homes, shaky nutrition, toxic environment, and health care gaps of every kind, kids in very low-income families may never catch up when it comes to their health. Dr. James Duffy says, throughout the science of toxic stress, we understand that early childhood adversity and poverty is a factor that affects not only the brain architecture and function, but affects the probability of lifelong illness, including cardiac disease and diabetes. Additionally, obesity is closely tied to poverty. For example, the most obese state, Arkansas, is also the fourth poorest state overall, whereas the poorest state, Mississippi, is also the third most overweight. Furthermore, the adult obesity rate is 34.4% among black adults, 31.3% among Latino adults, and comparably brightly 23.9% among white adults, which reflects the wealth distribution within the U.S. According to the National Hotline for Domestic Violence, an organization that seeks to support those facing abuse, domestic violence is described as behaviors that physically harm, arouse fear, prevent a partner from doing what they wish, or force them to behave in ways they do not want. It includes the use of physical and sexual violence, threats and intimidation, emotional abuse, and economic deprivation. Many of these different forms of domestic violence can be occurring at any time within the same intimate relationship. According to Andrew Gibbs, abuse is more likely to occur in households that face food insecurity. This is caused by the stress that living paycheck to paycheck can cause. This stress will eventually lead to the perpetrator blaming or taking the stress and anger out on their partner. Additionally, because of the lack of resources available, it is harder to leave the relationship. Overall, this leads to an estimated 30% of women experiencing domestic violence in their lifetime. Living in poverty at any point in time will negatively affect one's chances to succeed and living a fulfilling life. If one is poor as a child, the shaky nutrition and inadequate educational resources will lead to poor health and less job opportunities in the future. And even if one is poor as an adult, you may face greater risk of being involved in a crime or abuse. Overall, the worst thing we can do for these individuals is ignore their problems.